All right, so I'm here with Mr. Bryan Parady, CEO, founder of BonestoBulk. He's a fitness podcaster slash blogger, fitness coach, and he's here to just have some conversation, break down some really good fitness stuff for you guys. And I think one of the things, Bryan, I like the most about your stuff when I was going through your content is your simplicity, the way you kind of break down your video content and like how it's kind of funny, and it's really cool, man. So I'm here with him, and we're gonna jump right in and get some stuff going. So how you doing, Bryan?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I think just to kick things off right away, if you could just tell us and the listeners a little bit about you and I guess your story and how BonestoBulk kind of became a reality and all that.
Sure. So my story began when I was about 23. I used to be a really, really tiny dude. I was 118 pounds, just skinny as could be, felt really insecure, zero confidence in life. Not just from that, but I had a lot of crap in my childhood. So some of it stemmed from that. Some of it was due to my size, got picked on a lot. And so I watched through the Rocky movies, and I
Oh,
was,
nice.
I want to look like Sylvester Stallone. Shouldn't
Yeah,
be
who
that hard,
doesn't?
right?
Yeah.
So literally the next day, went out to Academy, bought a bench, bought some weights, set it up in the house, started working out, worked out for like 6 months. Literally nothing changed because I was doing everything wrong. But that was kind of my foot in the door, so to speak. The journey was pretty long in actually figuring things out and really deciding to go all in on this. And then it was kind of a gradual fade into doing it as a business. As I started to change physically, I had friends ask me what I was doing, and it kind of naturally progressed into me helping friends and then helping more people, and went on to get my personal training cert and decided to turn it into a business. So that's a little bit of the background of how BonestoBulk started.
Yeah, it kind of seems like that's usually how it goes, right? It's like once people start seeing changes, it's just all of a sudden it's like, oh man, you're just like you're noticing it, you're asking questions, you're like, there's something here, there's something I
Yes.
can do here. And I think when for you, Bryan, were you like, okay, I feel like there are so many people asking, there's so much going on with it that I can jump into the business side. Like what was it that made that kind of hit for you?
Uh, I would have to say I'd have to give a lot of props to my wife for encouraging me to do it.
Yeah,
She's in the online space. She's had an online business for a long time,
cool, cool.
and she was already kind of in that realm. And she was like, "Hey, you could, you're having more and more people approach you. You could take this online and kind of do it part time right now." And I was like, "Yeah, I could." So she kind of helps me get everything set up, and it kind of just has snowballed from there. And I still have a day job, so it's not my like full time thing yet. Um, Looking like it should be another year or two, and I'll be able to move into it full time. So, but yeah, just gradually making that progression.
Wow, that's really cool, man. So yeah, huge help having someone who already understands the online space. So you
Yeah,
makes sense why your content looks so cool, man. You got someone helping you out, like knows the game a little bit. So that's really cool.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really cool because we get to help each other out a lot. We're always bouncing ideas off of each other, and so it's really awesome to get to share that with her.
yeah. So that's really cool, man. I think one of the things I noticed about your profile is like the how you when you click on your link, there's like that page that has all your
Mhm.
stuff on there. I thought that was super cool, man. I've never seen that. Like where'd that come from?
So I guess I was just doing some research on how to have multiple links because I have a lot of different things that I would love to just, draw people to, send people to. So in my research found, some different companies that you can actually create that through, and it's free. It's not a paid thing. You can go,
Yeah.
the one I use is direct.me, and you just build all your different, links, and you can kind of customize the look of it. So yeah, I really like being able to have that list for people. So when they click on it, they have a good source of, good amount of resources to kind of choose from.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. You have everything right there instead of just, pretty much I think the majority of people I see, they go through like website and then the website has the stuff. But I think I like the direct.me thing a lot better, man. I think it's really nice because then they have their option right off the bat. You don't have to worry about, the website and all that stuff potentially. But that's pretty cool.
Right.
And then something you were talking about, your transition to the business side of it, Bryan. And I totally understand having the job and it's not your main gig yet, which I'm in the same boat, so working on it. But what would be your advice to somebody who wants to do the same thing? Because the fitness industry right now is mega, and I think there's a lot of people that are like you. They want to do it, they love it, they have a passion for it. You know, I mean, can you imagine just like working out as your job? Like that's totally cool. So, what would you tell people that transition? And they're kind of like, oh, maybe I don't have what it takes. Maybe I'm not good enough. Like, what do you think?
I would say consistency. And I know that seems kind of broad, but I feel like some people think that, hey, if I just throw up a website and create a Instagram, that I'm just going to have people flocking to me. And that couldn't be the furthest thing
Voila.
from exactly. It's like anything. I mean, people have to trust you, and people don't trust you until they see you a whole lot. I actually have had some clients recently that have literally been following me for 2 to 3 years, and they're just now, booking me as their coach. So it
Right.
takes a long time for people to see you and feel like they can trust you before they're going to pull the trigger on actually spending money to hire you. So it's a long game, just like if you were to build a brick and mortar business. You don't really, they say don't even expect us to earn a paycheck for at least a couple years. And it's no different in the online space. So, if it's something you're passionate about, just keep at it. Don't give up. Keep your day job to
Yeah.
support you while
Yeah. Okay, that's really cool. So how have you enjoyed the coaching? Because I'm sure that's a bit of a big change as well from like just working your job and leading individuals there to actually the coaching side. And you said you got your fitness training cert, so just I guess kind of talk to
you're
some about that, like lessons learned in the coaching area.
Yeah, so coaching is really fun. I absolutely enjoy it. I really honestly enjoy all aspects. I do a lot of content creation, videos and tutorials, and I love that aspect. But I really love getting to actually walk with someone on their journey for however short a span it may be, because I know that, I know for me, fitness literally changed my life. And it's not that because I, gained some muscle, I was changed, but it started to give me confidence that, hey, I can accomplish this. What else can I accomplish? And it began to push me and take steps and risks in other areas in life. So I know what a huge breakthrough it was for me. And if I can impart that to some other people, like it's worth it. And then getting to see, people's success stories and people who have struggled with either weight loss or weight gain, and then to finally see them have some, progress in it. It's really rewarding. But I find that with coaching, it's like anything in life. Most of the things that I talk about with my clients is all mindset, because so much of anything we do in life revolves around our mindset with it.
Yeah, that's so true. And I totally agree with your thing about you can see the change in someone's life. I mean, health and fitness is such a big part of our lives. I mean, how you feel day to day and your energy throughout the day, and then your strength when you're doing certain things, depending on your job. Like when you see people excelling, you're just like that person feels like, holy cow, it's like a whole new person, and life has all new opportunities. So I can
Yes.
imagine how cool that is to see. It's kind of, it seems like, Bryan, it's almost like raising a child sometimes. Like when they, they're learning new techniques and they hit their PRs and like, yeah, and you're like,
Yes.
dude, that's totally cool.
It really is. You kind of get to celebrate those wins with them. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So something kind of shifting gears here a little bit. Something I thought would be cool, Bryan, in preparing for the show today is if you could debunk some myths, man. So we're talking about coaching people now. So you've had some experience coaching people. You're watching them, face to face or digitally now due to the Covitus or however you run that. But what would some myths, man, that you see that you could kind of debunk?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I would say some of the top are, I get asked all the time, how do I lose belly fat? And
Uh,
the answer is you can't target fat loss. You can eat at a deficit and lose
right.
overall weight, but you can't really pick and choose where your body loses fat first, unfortunately. So that's a big one. Another one is people think that, if they want to get healthy, all they have to do is work out. And that's just but a small piece of the puzzle. Like working out's important, don't get me wrong, but the nutrition side of things plays so much of a bigger role. And people think, well, if I work out, then I can eat whatever I want. And it just doesn't work that way. That may work when we're like 18 to 21.
Yeah.
You start getting a little up there in age and it no longer works anymore. So that's another big one. Man, yeah, there's a lot of them. You have to lift heavy to gain muscle. You really don't. It's all about form and technique. And that can be done with very light weights. I see more people do more harm than good trying to lift crazy amounts of weight when they can't control the weight, and it leads to injury and a lot of other negative things. So those are definitely some big pitfalls I see a lot.
Yeah, I can definitely see that with the heavy weight, man. And the belly fat one was kind of funny, talk to people and they're like, well, I just want to lose some weight. And you're like, oh yeah, they're like, yeah, just right here though. Just just right here. Nowhere else, just right here. It's like,
Right.
I don't think it works that way, man. I'm not 100% sure. But that's cool.
No.
That made me think you're talking about the nutrition side, and you can read that and hear that all over the place. But for some reason, it still doesn't click for people, So how do you help really like cement that into people's mindset and get them thinking along the lines of eating better and I guess just being more conscious about their diet, right? I prefer a meal plan because diet's a negative
Yeah.
word.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of mindset because food is a very emotional thing. I mean, how many
Yes.
times you smell something certain cooking and it'll bring back memories from childhood or good
Mhm.
memories and stuff. So like there's a lot of emotion tied in with food. So I think recognizing that, and then also recognizing like you're not going to fix all your eating problems in a week. You have however many years of bad eating habits, and it's going to take time to undo those. So I really try to start off slow with people, baby steps. And let's
Yeah.
pick a couple things that we know are unhealthy and let's swap those out for healthy items. And, once we kind of have those under our belt, let's add a couple more to it. And I don't believe in diets. There's so many fad diets out there and they come and they go. And, it doesn't, and the reason I don't like them is because they're not sustainable. I mean, can you see results going on a diet? Sure, while you're on it, but most diets are not built to sustain over a lifetime. They're made so that you can get on them for a very short amount of time. And so I really try to teach people like, hey, here's how to eat healthy from all food groups, how to still enjoy, cheat meals once in a while, and really try to bring in more of a holistic approach to eating rather than, okay, we're just gonna forget this entire food group and
Yeah.
it's just not realistic.
Yeah, guilty as charged, right, on the bad eating habits, man. I totally understand that. So growing up as a wrestler, it's I guess the time that I grew up in, there was a lot of like weight cutting and probably improper weight cutting and things like that. And then everything after the weight cut in the match would just be gorging yourself on whatever you get your hands on. And that developed into some pretty bad habits. Like I am a late night eater. When I get bored and I'm not sleepy, I start pounding away on some food. And if there's nothing good available, I'll just make quick stuff, cereal, and just the not good stuff, right? So
Right.
trying to switch it up recently, just do protein shake. And sometimes it makes me
It's
feel
good.
good, but that's the change. And then you brought up fad diets too. So it's like one of the big ones that I wanted to ask you about is intermittent fasting. Now that's something that,
Mhm.
especially like in the military space, and people eat that up, and then some people try it and they feel like not good. So I'm like, man, I wonder about that.
Yeah. So intermittent fasting, I'm actually not opposed to intermittent fasting, but I don't think it's for everybody.
Oh,
So because intermittent fasting isn't really, in my eyes, a diet. It's more of just I'm going to limit my eating window to this range. Um,
okay.
and so when you reduce your window, and usually the split is 16 and 8. Usually you fast for 16 hours and you eat 8 hours out of that window. So what it does is automatically when you're narrowing your window, you're going to consume less calories. So it does help some people with getting overall calories down, but for some people it doesn't. It's all kind of our personality. Some of us like thrive, like you're in the military, and like
Yeah,
some of us thrive with that discipline, like and others it makes us go crazy. So I think it's kind of the same way with intermittent fasting. For
yeah,
people who really like things to be very tightly structured, it can be really beneficial to help them at least at the beginning try to get their calories down. But for others who don't really like being confined, it can be disastrous because then they just kind of go off the rails with it.
right, right. How do you feel it works for people who want to kind of do what you're trying to get people to do, is like to gain some weight stuff and go from bony to bulky? How does intermittent fasting work for those people?
For that, I really don't recommend it because when most of the people that I work with, and for myself personally, we're hard gainers, so it's already really hard for us to put on weight to begin with. And then if you narrow down that window, it's nearly impossible to get in all the calories you have to get in order to maintain that. Like I still have to eat a crap ton of calories every day just to kind of maintain what I currently have. And getting that in an 8-hour window, I would probably just feel completely sick from just shoving so much food.
Yeah, it's like I only get 3 meals, but it's going to be a 3,000 calorie meal every time.
Right.
That'd be insane.
Narrow down your eating like every 2 hours. It's just crazy.
Yeah. And is that something, Brian, you think is like the first step for people that are hard gainers? Because you mentioned hard gainer, and I totally feel that like in my core, because I've been kind of that guy too, like smaller structure. So I kind of like have leaned towards just like functional training, because when you don't gain the muscle, you're like, well, how can I still be strong and fast and still feel good about my workout routine? But what would you say is the first step? Would it be just caloric intake and just increasing that, or would it be some other things?
So, you definitely want to be working out while eating more, because if you're just eating more, it's your body's doesn't have anything to do with those calories, so to speak.
Right.
So I do recommend, doing some lifting so that as you begin to gain, it does actually start to gain some muscle and not just fat. But yeah, it's about getting the calories high enough. But it's also about getting the right amount of calories. Because when I started, I was eating, if I had to guess, I wasn't tracking calories back then, but I ate terrible. If I had to guess, I was probably eating 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day of just solid junk food, like soda and ice cream and little Debbie snacks and
Anything.
pizza, like you name it. And I was eating it, fast food all the time. So, like, it's not just about getting your calories up, it's about getting the right kinds of calories. Because if you're just eating junk food, your body can't use any of those calories to actually build muscle. And so for fat hard gainers, we don't typically store it as fat because it just goes right through us, but it also doesn't add anything onto us. So it's kind of like, I call it just empty calories. They're calories in, calories out.
Right.
So it's really important to get good healthy food. So like your lean proteins and meats and your healthy carbohydrates and your healthy fats. That way your body can take those nutrients and actually build from there.
Right. Yeah, I guess for beginners, that can be the difficult piece, right? Because they're like, well, how much? Like that balance of exercise to caloric intake, and then how would someone even figure out, Brian, like what that would be? Like, how do they calculate how much they need to increase versus how much they need to like work out, right? Especially if they're just starting out. Like, hey, I realize I'm a hard gainer. I want to start doing a little bit of exercising or weightlifting or strength training, whatever they want to call it, and I know I need to eat more. Like, where would you tell them to kind of begin on that?
Yeah, so there's some great apps out there like MyFitnessPal, and you basically download the app. You can put in your height, your weight, your age, how active you are, and then it kind of gauges how much you should be eating in order to either gain, maintain, or lose weight. And so obviously we're talking about gaining. So you're going to kind of look at that number. Now that number is not 100% accurate. It's kind of a guesstimate because we're all a little bit different. But the thing to remember is it's a good starting point. So kind of take that number and make that your goal to hit. While starting to work out, I would recommend, if you're just starting out, at least 3 to 4 days a week, hit the weights, and then start eating at that number. And then it's kind of a learning process. It'll have to be adjusted each week. If you go a couple weeks and you realize, hey, I'm not gaining anything, well, that your calorie threshold is still a little bit too low and you need to bump that up. So it's kind of a little bit of a trial and error, and we really have to be paying attention as we start off and measuring and weighing in to kind of track our progress. I always compare it to, like, if you're trying to make a road trip cross country, you're not just going to jump in the car and haphazardly drive anywhere. You're going to have a direct plan, and you're going to make sure, like, okay, I'm hitting the right cities, I know I'm on the right path. So it's kind of the same way with that. You've got to constantly check in with yourself and be like, okay, is what I'm doing working or is it not?
Yeah, I mean, and so far, everything you said, it seems like that's a big key, just kind of having some presence and awareness of what's going on and taking some steps back throughout your week and kind of evaluating what's going on, because and those are very daunting things, for people. I know when I first started out trying to, really get serious, a few years back, and it was very daunting to track calories and to do that kind of stuff, because it just seemed like I'd always forget about it. And then after the fact, it's already like too late. You can't go back over your day and be like, man, what did I eat? What was? Then you start missing stuff, and then it's just like, and then you feel defeated. And you're like, hey, it ain't even working anyway, So I can totally see how that could be difficult for you.
Yeah, and counting calories is not the easiest thing, especially when you've never done it. It's not the easiest thing. But I always say, counting calories isn't something you have to do forever, but it's a very eye-opening experience because I know for like me, when I started, I had no idea what I was eating. Like I literally had no clue what was in the food that I was intaking. And so counting calories began to open my eyes to be like, wow, that's what's in this product. Wow, I thought
Yeah.
this product was healthy. It's terrible for me. Or and so it really is you've kind of got to go into it as this is a learning experience, and I hate to say this, but like nothing like worth going after is necessarily easy, and it kind of does suck for a little while, but it does get easier. It's kind of like anything, at first it seems overwhelming, but as you continue to do it, you start to get more comfortable with it, and it becomes easier and easier.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. A while back, Brian, I actually reached out to a nutritionist, and I was having some issues with like one of the points of my cholesterol. I think is like the one that deals with fat in the blood. And I guess mine was a little high, like during a blood test. And I reached out to a nutritionist, and she was kind of like walking me through my diet or my what I typically eat. And she mentioned like how much peanut butter do you eat? And I was like, oh, tons. Like I love peanut butter, like just spoonfuls of stuff. You know what I mean? And she was like, well, what kind of peanut butter do you use? And I was like, that's a weird question. Like peanut butter is peanut butter. You know what I mean? Like it can't be that different. So she's like, well, what's your brand? So I pulled up the peanut butter jar and I told her, and she's like, oh no. She's like, you don't want that one. I'm like, what? What? Like what peanut butter do I need? And she suggested a more natural one because some kind of oil in there. And I was blown away, man. So what you mentioned about
Yeah.
the experience of what's actually in stuff, like for the next week, right? I was all about like, what does this actually mean? Like, what is this and how's it affecting my body? And even rice, like the next thing I had to limit rice. I was like, this is bananas, dude. I thought you could just eat mountains of rice and be no problem. But apparently it's a big issue, like a lot of carbs in rice.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, a cup of rice only?
Yeah.
It hurt my heart, man. It hurt my heart. It's like me some white rice.
Yeah, and oftentimes it's what you pair things with. Like rice is great, but it's also really important that it's paired with a protein, that you're not just eating rice by itself. So yeah, there's a lot, but I really have gotten some people going talking about peanut butter because people are passionate about their peanut butter.
They are. So that's really cool, man. I totally feel a lot of that. So one of the other questions I wanted to ask is, so there are definitely a lot of things about, you mentioned earlier, technique and like the amount of time that people are working out. And I think you said 3 to 4 days a week or something like that. Is that like a standard, Brian, or is that like, I'm sorry?
Yeah, 3 to 4 days. Ideally, I think 5 days is what you want to work up towards. But I get that starting off, that's not feasible for a lot of people.
Right.
So, 3 to 4 days starting off, with 5 days kind of being the goal. And, yeah, with to your point, form and technique is so important. We think that just because we lift a heavy weight, it's gonna, grow our muscles. But like I always give the example with a bicep curl, and you've probably seen this. Somebody in the gym with a really heavy barbell, and they're like swinging their whole body trying to get it up.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you're taking all the tension off the muscle we're trying to work is the bicep. And when I'm like swinging my whole body, my back and my momentum is what's carrying the movement through. So I'm no longer even working out the bicep muscle. So just things like that, we just kind of elevate how much weight we're lifting as the end all, when in reality it's all about our form. And if I'm doing 20-pound barbell curls, and I'm going nice and slow and controlled, and I'm going slow throughout the movement so that my muscle is actually under a lot of tension, I'm getting a much better workout than some guy who's struggling to get 50 pounds up next to me. So I always try to tell people, like, it's not about the number on the end of the weight. It's about how much you're in control of the movement, because that's what really matters.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you think, so in that case, do you think for individuals who struggle with that, they want to go heavy too fast, too soon, like their progression's too fast? Do you think that's a lot to do with like people around them and like, I guess, like feelings of embarrassment and stuff like that? That causes that problem?
I do. I think there's a lot of Unfortunately, there's a lot of ego in the gym. And
Yeah.
so when you go, and especially when you're new and you're not familiar with things, and yeah, it can be an intimidating place going in the gym the first time. I know I was intimidated the first time I went in. There's guys like 3 times my size. I'm like, what am I doing? And
Yeah.
so you just kind of want to feel like you fit in, so you grab some heavy weights. But in all honesty, that's the worst thing you can do. So it's kind of like you got to realize, like, I'm not here for anybody else. I'm here for my own health, for my own
Yeah.
betterment. And I've got to focus on doing what's going to be beneficial for me, not for other people around me. And in all honesty, 85% of the people in the gym are super nice. And if you ask them questions, they'll help you out. And then there's always going to be those people, like, in no matter where you are in life, in the gym or
Right.
outside the gym, there's always be 10% who are just gonna, make fun of or point fingers. Just ignore them. They've got their own issues they're dealing with.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I mean, sometimes the intensity too, like you see someone and like you said, they're completely nice and stuff, but they got their workout face on, you know what I mean? They're listening to some heavy metal, and then they're not going to have like a smile. That's not the nature of the game they're in right now. You know what I mean? They're not in that mode. So you just got to like put that
Exactly.
aside. Like, no, they're not mad. They're not looking at you like crazy. It's just, they're in the zone.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
so back to
And
the,
I would say too, don't be afraid to ask questions of other people. Kind of to your point, people can look intimidating, and obviously don't go up and interrupt them while they're in the middle of a set, because that's just annoying. But
yeah,
when you notice they're taking a breather, you just go up and be like, hey, you seem like you're in pretty good shape. Can you give me some pointers? I'm just starting off. And most people are more than willing to open up, tell you about what worked for them. And I learned a ton just by doing that in my early days. So, like, don't underestimate asking questions.
Yeah, I say that's a good point, but probably more easier said than done, right? Again, back to like the ego thing, and then just people not necessarily being social. They're kind of like, oh man, this is super weird. But no, I think that's a great point though, and something I could probably do a lot better too. A lot of times I'm just in my own world, and then when I do have a partner, I'm like, yeah, this is good, just me and the homie rocking out. You know what I mean? So that's
Yeah.
cool. But I do want to ask, back to the technique and the form and lightweight and all that kind of stuff. I feel like that's something that a lot of people know. They know that you can get a good workout with lighter weight, and then maybe they don't know so much about progression ratios and stuff like that. But I think a lot of people, you hear them say it like, oh yeah, you can do good with lightweight, but then you go to the gym with them and they're trying to crank up the hundreds. You're like, dude, weren't we just talking about lightweight workouts? So like, what do you think is the biggest factor of that? Like other than ego, because I know like that kind of plays a factor, but I feel like maybe there's something to it where people just don't feel like they're quite getting the workout, like after, if you're not super sore, you're not like feeling dead all over, you're like, man, it must not have been good.
Yeah. I think it's twofold, because there to your point, there is that element. We're usually, when we start working out, we're sore for the first few weeks, and then that kind of starts to wear off. And so we feel like, well, if I'm not sore, I didn't get a workout in. And that's not really true. In fact, it means you're progressing really well, because your body is getting accustomed to lifting heavier weight. So it's able to handle that better. And two, I think we're very visual people. So
Yeah.
we want to see that we're progressing by lifting a lot more weight. And that's the easiest way for it to register in our brain, like, hey, I'm getting better because I lifted a crap ton of weight. When we should more be, to me, one of the best indicators for feeling like if you're making progress is how your clothes feel. We can even become so obsessed with the scale. And oftentimes, especially when I'm working with clients who want to lose weight and gain muscle, they come in very obsessed with the scale, the numbers. I'm like, you've got to get rid of that obsession, because the scale doesn't tell the whole picture. Because when you're gaining muscle and losing fat at the same time, I've seen it in clients. I've had clients where they don't lose any weight, but they lose drastic inches around their waist and around their chest,
Oh, wow.
because their bodies are transforming. I had a client who lost 6 inches in his waist in a couple of weeks and didn't lose any pounds. So that was showing, like, the body is changing, and you're shifting from, you're losing fat and you're gaining muscle. So just because the scale isn't moving doesn't necessarily mean you're not making a lot of progress.
Yeah, and I never thought about it like that, because then he probably came to you and was like, man, it's not working, like what's going on, like I'm not losing any weight, and then you're like, you get to the point where you measure, I don't know how that comes about, but you get to that point and he's like, oh yeah, wow, like this is amazing. This is cool, like I'll take it.
And usually it's pretty mind-blowing for them, because they'll be like, man, my pants don't even fit anymore. I can't keep my pants up, but the scale hasn't changed. I don't get it. And I'm saying, It's because your body composition is changing.
Yeah, that's something you really don't think about that stuff very often,
Yeah.
like body transforming, man. That's really cool. Because I never even think of that, and how your clothes fit. That's a cool way to kind of go about it. And would you say that's like a really good standardized way to do it, like for everybody, or is it?
I think, I mean, I'm not going to say the scale doesn't have its place, because it definitely does.
Yeah.
But I just feel like the scale is kind of the end all. We make it like the god of our progress, and it really it's just one tool that we can use to kind of measure some things, and it's not even the best tool. So yeah, I would say how your clothes fit and measurements are probably the best things you can do to kind of track your progress.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right though. A lot of people do kind of hold up the scale as kind of like, this idol in their lives for like fitness. And it's like, I'll tell you this though, wrestlers have a totally different relationship with the scale. We like to beat them up and throw them in the garbage, we're good without them. I get to the point where I can just tell about how much I weighed by like the little belly fat, the extra, like the food baby I had. I could kind of look down and be like, oh yeah, that's a good pound and a half right there, but anyway, that's a little wrestling humor for you. But, no, that's really interesting. I mean, I like that a lot. And then back to the progression, back to like people want to go very quickly, move up weight, they're not sore anymore. Like, what would you say is a good progression ratio? I've heard like 5 pounds a week, or on your different lifts and things like that. Is that true? Or is that accurate?
So it depends on the type of exercise you're doing. It's going to depend a lot on the person. So, for example, you may be able to easily add 5 pounds on each week for a while on something like bench press. But adding 5 pounds on to like a bicep curl every week is a lot. So it kind of is dependent on the exercise. I always say a good rule of thumb for when it's time to kind of up the weight is, let's say your routine says you're doing 3 sets of 12. Okay. If you're starting to hit 12 reps and you're like, man, I could probably pump out a few more, and you feel really good by the end of your 3 sets, bump the weight up because it's becoming easy for you. So that's always a good gauge. And then, just bump it up 5 to 10 pounds, and then see if you're still able to manage the weight, control it smoothly at that new weight, and still hit your rep range. And if you can't, then knock it back a bit. So that's kind of always my gauge that I tell people, if you can control it and you still hit your minimum reps, you're good to go. If you increase it and you can no longer control it and you're not hitting your reps, then you need to back it down a bit. So that's kind of a good rule of thumb for kind of when to progress and when to back it up.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like just gauging it based on strength, like what your actual strength level's at. Like if you're just beasting it up, maybe it's time to move out. Which makes me think too is like there's so much information, like I mentioned earlier, out there. I think the fitness industry is so oversaturated with just stuff, like just people saying things, and it's like, because of that, there's so many different, I guess, like ideas on how you should work out, depending on like body types and stuff, like how much reps and things like that. So what if someone's on what if they're on a plan where they're only doing 6 to 8 reps, right? They're really in bulk mode and they're only doing low amounts. Do you think that strength meter still applies? I feel like for some people in their head, they kind of get mixed up. It'd be hard to gauge it that way if they're only doing small reps, because they're like, hey, it's got to be real heavy because that's the point, right? I'm only doing 6 to 8 reps.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely, I always say like it's good to do like low rep weeks and high rep weeks, because it gives you a good understanding of where you're at. Because kind of to your point, if you're only always doing low reps, you really don't know what your muscular endurance is, because it's always just really quick, short bursts. Right. So that's why it's good to change it up. Don't get me wrong, it's good to have weeks where you do low reps and kind of max out on stuff and see where you're at. But it's also good to have those higher rep weeks, because that really kind of shows where your muscular endurance is. So I recommend doing, a couple weeks at one and then a couple weeks at the other and rotating through it. Just because I think that's the best overall for building strength. You can't really stay in one and make a lot of progress. You got to change it up.
Yeah, and so it's crazy you mention that, because I think everything I've ever researched and studied, you don't hear people talk about that. It's like when they have a plan, it's like, look, you're either doing that, you're doing 6 to 8 reps, and you're doing like a power phase, for months, or you're doing just like, hey, you're doing low weight and you're trying to, muscle repair and, you know what I mean, all this kind of stuff, and you just do that. So I think it's refreshing actually to hear that you can mix the two together, and it may have, even better benefits for you if you do so.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I like to run a cycle. It's basically like a microcycle. It's broken up into 4 weeks, and so you start off in week 1 with a high rep range, and then each week you decrease your reps by about 3 to 4. So by week 4, you're only doing a very low amount of reps, and each week the goal is to increase the amount of weight you're lifting since your reps are decreasing. And I find when you run through that for 8 weeks without fail, almost every single person I put through that, the amount that their strength goes up in that 8 weeks is just insane. So I really like the changing things up week to week. I really think it really pushes us so we don't get in that groove and just kind of get comfortable with a certain rep range.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, do you think some of that has to do with a lot of people, they come into the gym with a lot of bad habits, like they've been working out wrong for years, and then when they come in, you're just like, look, dude, we're gonna start right here, basics, lightweight. We're gonna get this thing right, and we're gonna slowly progress. We're gonna do it. You know what I mean? Do you think that has a lot to do with it?
Oh yeah, it has a lot to do with it. It has to do with, and then too, not only that, but people, kind of to your point, there's a lot of crap out there in the fitness industry. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people giving a lot of really bad advice, and so it's a combination of, you've either got bad habits that you've developed, or you're getting bad habits that someone else who shouldn't be teaching things is teaching. So it's usually one of the two. So yeah, a lot of it is unlearning the old.
Yeah, I remember I was working out with a guy. He's a good dude, man. But like, and I don't know if he's like wrong or not, And I guess not even about like being right or wrong, but we were like working out for a while with this guy, and he's pretty decent sized guy. A lot of it's just like he's naturally big. He's probably about 6'2", 6'3", you know what I mean? So any bit of size on a guy like that, he looks pretty giant. Especially me. 5'5" me, I'm like, man, that guy's pretty big, So we started working with this guy, and he was doing like insane amount of like time. He put an insane amount of time in the gym. Like every workout or every session was like an hour plus, like hour 20, hour 30. He's doing just like for chest, right? He's just doing everything in the gym, like every machine that possibly like had the highlighted red chest. He's like, I'm doing that, And I'm just sitting there like working out with this dude. I'm like, bro, I'm so done right now. Like I don't feel like this is doing anything. Like we're just doing the same stuff over and over again. So I'm kind of curious about that. Like, is that just overkill?
I think so personally, unless your goal is to like be a professional bodybuilder and be on stage. I don't think there's any reason you need to be in the gym more than an hour. Like 45 minutes is ideal. Yeah. I think if you're focused and you're getting stuff done, like, and not, taking long breaks and on your phone all the time. Yeah. But if you're focused, get in there, get what you need to do. 45 minutes is really all you need, because there does come a point, usually at around an hour and 15 minutes, where your body's so exhausted that you're not really making any progress anymore. Your body's so depleted at that point that it's really robbing itself to feed the muscles. So, which goes against what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And I just felt like, man, we've already done the same exercise basically like 3 times over now, and it's like, I feel like at this point, like you can't re-tear the muscles that are already torn. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand how that works. Like, it's not going to get any more torn than it is right now, So it was kind of hilarious, man. And it's, yeah, it's kind of a running joke with this guy now too. I'm like, hey man, you want to go to the gym for 5 hours? Like, so it's pretty funny, but
that's awesome.
Yeah, and then in that same range, Brian, actually, one of the other things I really wanted to talk to you about was, or have you talked to us about, is the time of day that people work out. Talking about, you and I, fathers, we got a couple kids, right? We still got the jobs, and I hear a lot of different stuff about morning workouts versus afternoon workouts versus night workouts. So what would you say, or how would you, I guess, just talk to us about those individual days and how that kind of works out for you.
So I don't think there's a perfect time to work out. I think the best time to work out is what you can stay consistent with. And for everybody, that's going to look different. I mean, I know a lot of other guys in the fitness space that I know personally, and I know some that work out first thing in the morning. I know some that work out in the afternoon. And I know that some that work out at night. And none of them are bad. There are some things to keep in mind. Like, for example, I typically work out early in the morning. And I know that I can't lift quite as heavy at 4:30 in the morning as I can at 4 in the afternoon, just because my body's not fully awake yet. So there is that element to it. And then at nighttime, if you're working out and then trying to go home and go right to sleep, that could have some adverse effects too, because you're all ramped up from your workout. And so it may be harder to fall asleep. So there are those elements that play a role. But in all actuality, like, do what works for your schedule. Don't feel like, oh, I've got to work out at 3 o'clock if 3 o'clock is just completely unfeasible, because it's better to get in a workout that you're going to consistently be able to do rather than trying to fit in at a time that just doesn't work for you.
Yeah. And one of the crazy things, Brian, is everything you mentioned. I think it's like, and again, it's simple, it's correct, it's accurate, it's been proven year after year after year in the fitness space, right? But I think the problem is there's, so many people know this stuff, but then it's like when you research fitness and there's all, like we talked about, there's such information overload that it's like people think they have to exactly prescribe to this plan in this way, and they kind of start making decisions in a vacuum, and they're like, if it's not this, it doesn't matter, right? Like, this isn't bad. Like I've heard night workouts are just like absolutely terrible, like they don't work. They like, I've heard so much stuff, man. So it's interesting that you say that. Just pick what's best,
I don't know if you've ever seen Jeff Cavalier of Athlean X, but he's kind of a fitness guru guy. Probably one of the most naturally in shape people on the planet. But he works out at like 11 o'clock every night. So, but then to that, I know a lot of other like very elite fitness professionals that are there at like 5 o'clock in the morning. So again, I think it's all just what works for people's schedule. None of us are exactly alike. But kind of to your point, it's exactly like that, where people think they have to have it all like nailed down before they can even start, and that keeps people stuck, because it's like, well, I can't have everything exactly on point this week, so I'll just start next week. Well, you're never going to have everything on point. Nobody is like perfect with their fitness. Nobody. So like, just start small. A small step can go a long way. I always give the example. Let's say you take a person who wants to lose weight and they drink 1 can of soda a day, and the only change you have them make is get rid of the can of soda and replace it with water. Over the course of a year, they're going to lose 15 pounds just from that one small step. So like, people underestimate how drastic of an effect small changes can make. They think it's got to be all this crazy stuff, but small changes add up. So just start with where you're at, start small, and build from there.
Yeah. So it's like you're saying the compound effect usually works better than just trying to like become, fitness Superman in a week and do all this stuff, because it's harder to maintain, right? It's like when you go from, doing all this, like if you go from not working out at all to trying to do 2 hours in the gym every single day, 7 days a week, it's like, dude, anybody, I don't care if you're Superman himself, like that's gonna be tough, man. Like, at least on the mind, like maybe your body can handle it because you're Superman, but not your mentality.
Yeah. And I think that's why so many people start something in fitness and then fall off it, because they go too much head in first. Like you're saying, they just go way too hard with the workouts. They go way too hard with the meals and just completely cut everything out. And then after a couple weeks of that, you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. This is too much.
Laying on the bed.
Exactly.
Damn,
Really, I tried it, and it's not for me, but it's like just those small steps and gradually ease into it.
Yeah, they give you a call like, Bryan, I'm tired, I'm sore, can't do this anymore. It's too much. But that's cool. So actually, instead of talking about time, what would you say, like, if you're coaching someone who's like us, right? Parents, like, they don't, because I hear it all the time. I don't have time. So what would you say to that person? Someone who they maybe have a narrow window for exercise and they're kind of starting out, or maybe, wherever they're at in their journey, I guess. Like, how would you advise them to begin?
The first thing I usually ask those people is, do you watch any Netflix? And do you play any video games? And usually I get them with that one. They're like, well, yeah. I'm like, well, then you have time. It's more of a matter of what's a priority. Because if something's important to you, you're going to make time for it. That's really what it boils down to. But I do get that, some people are really strapped for time, especially when you're working, when you've got kids. Like, I get it. I'm in that boat. It's it's hard to keep track of everything. So, you've got to find what works for you. And maybe that's just having a few dumbbells in your garage and getting up 30 minutes before everybody else, just so you can get that 30-minute workout in before you shower and get on with your day. So, don't feel like anything's too small, kind of coming back to that point. I think we think if we're not in the gym for 2 hours, then there's no point in starting. And that's just ridiculous. I mean, a 30-minute workout, even if you have zero equipment, pull up YouTube and pull up some home hit workout and just follow on to that for 20 minutes. Like, those small things are going to add up. And then the more you do, the more you start moving, the more you start eating a little bit healthy, the more you're going to want to, and the easier it's going to become. So, yeah.
So to that point then, Bryan, I mean, that has to progress though, right? Like for someone, that wants to, get bigger, or someone that wants to lose weight, right? Doing the small workouts of 20 minutes, like just small, like body weight stuff, or what they call grinder PT, right? Like that does eventually have to progress, right? Like you can't just do that for long term.
Depending on what your goal is. I mean, for someone who maybe just wants to lose 10 pounds, that could be enough. But for someone wanting to do something more drastic or to put on a decent amount of muscle mass, yeah, it is going to require more than that eventually. You're eventually going to have to increase what you're doing.
Right. So it's like you're saying that's just the best place to start with to get in the habit of working out and feel good about yourself, to get your mindset right. Maybe, that's a great time to add some of the other things like the diet and stuff, and then keep moving that forward.
Yeah, for sure. Because as we make small accomplishments, and maybe that's just getting in a couple workouts to a YouTube video a week, as we make those accomplishments, like you said, it makes us feel better, it makes us feel good. Then we're like, okay, well, I could handle that. Let's see what else I can handle. And we can throw a couple more things in there. And it just kind of stacks on top of each other.
Yeah, because I can see how, especially like in the with the coaching, right? People like they start and they're like, okay, I only can do this 20-minute thing in my garage with a couple dumbbells. And after like a couple days, if they're able to hit it consistently, they already feel like, man, I got to change this up. I got to move. And I can imagine you being like, whoa, hold on, man. Like, let's keep doing this a little bit longer, because I get that, I just feel like, it's not enough, like in your head, if you're trying to go from, me to, Ronnie Coleman, right? That ain't going to happen in the 20-minute garage gym, And when you're in there listening to that stuff, you're like, man, I got to get out of here. I got to get to the big gym,
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, and two, a lot of it depends on, what's that person's background. Some people come to me and they do lift quite a bit and they're kind of already in the game. And so they just need something to push them even further. And then I've got other people coming to me who have never, touched a weight in their life. So a lot of it kind of depends on what your starting point is for how hard I can push you. So like if you've already got a background in lifting and you're really looking to take things to the next level, then I know I can go kind of harder on you than I can the person who's coming to me starting from square one. So
right. So with that, how important is it to have a coach? I know there's a lot of people that are like totally just like, nah, I'm not spending money on somebody. I got internet, I got YouTube,
Right. And in all honesty, you don't have to have a coach. And I'm a coach and I'm saying that, but a lot of it comes down to you. A lot of people need the accountability. They need that person walking them through it. Because it is easier to understand. I can watch a YouTube video, which I do all the time. Like how many of us, something breaks in our house, so we're like, okay, YouTube, how do I fix this?
Yeah.
That stuff works for some things. And then there may be bigger issues that happen, like something breaks in the house really big. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not even going to try to tackle this on my own. I'm calling somebody who knows what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that where, we all know what we're capable of. And if you're the really disciplined type, that you're going to keep yourself accountable, then yeah, I would say you may not need a coach. Just do your research and stay consistent with it. But if you're kind of that person who's like, I kind of need someone in my corner, or I need someone guiding me a little bit, then you probably would really benefit from having a coach. So I think a lot of it's based on personality and kind of where you're at in your life.
Okay. So you'd say, so it sounds like you're saying accountability is like the biggest reason, I guess, people come to coaching.
I think so, because let's be honest, any information we ever need in life, we can find on the internet if we dig deep enough. So it's not that I'm giving any like groundbreaking information to my clients. Like I didn't come up with this stuff. You know what I mean? It's not the Bryan Parady copyrighted stuff. It's just that, I can help you with this. I can help you understand it. I can break down the things that you don't understand, and I can help keep you accountable.
Yeah, and then kind of like the experience of having someone there with you, and then also it's like a gym partner, for spotting and things. Because I see it all the time. When you see, you do watch the YouTube videos and stuff, and you even see these guys that are like professional bodybuilders, and they could do it on their own, but they still have like three guys with them. Like they're in there
Yeah.
working out with like 3-4 dudes, and it's like, why do they have those people?
Right.
It seems to me it's like, man, it's probably pretty important to have some people, that you're working out with, or someone that's maybe got knowledge of one area that you don't have a lot of knowledge in, right? So you can all just kind of feed into each other and help each other out. So that's
Yep.
cool.
We all can always learn more, and I think especially when you reach the levels of some of these bodybuilders, and you're at kind of the peak of your career, that, hey, I've got to learn more in order to get that slight edge over my competitors. And so they understand the importance of bringing someone in that's really going to push them, and that push that may be like a tiny amount, but when you're at that level, those small little micro things matter a lot.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, I recommend coaching. I recommend, I've had coaches for all kinds of things, and I recommend Bryan to hook you up, right? Because I'm gonna tell you this, Bryan, and the reason I recommend it, not just because you're on here with me, but I really like your stuff, man. I was, as soon as you reached out to me, I was like, man, I'm gonna start, consuming this guy's content. I really like the simplicity of it, and I think it's great stuff. On top of that, again, I just recommend coaching in general, and every experience I've ever had working out, it's always better in a group. It's always more fun. I mean, you can do different kinds of workouts. Cause I'm a big functional fitness guy. I'm not just like not what I call like a barbell monkey. It's not in there, dumping weights. But I really like to run and do some other things. But it's always better in a group, man. It's always better when you have even just one person, and then having someone that you're actually looking up to and asking questions, and having that person to hold you accountable and be like, look, dude, maybe tired, but you got to get back in there and, maybe do this, maybe do that light, like deload, week or something. And it's definitely helped me tons and tons. So
for sure.
Yeah. So what else would you tell someone who, I guess I was kind of an ad lib here, but that was a good one. So what else would you tell someone who is like, they're kind of like, they feel in their head that they've been working out for a while, and we all know those people, right, Bryan? They're like, I've been working out for a while, man. Like, I think I got this, but they don't have any progression, and they come to you, or they go to the internet. And they're like, man, I'm kind of stuck though. Like how would you kind of help those people?
The biggest thing is I try to tell them, like, you've got to be open-minded. You're coming to me. I know you know a lot of stuff, but there's more you don't know. And I tell them, there's a lot I don't know. Like, I'm a coach, and there's so much that I don't know.
Yeah.
And so it's got to be kind of, you've got to approach it from, like, we're lifelong learners. Ideally, we should never stop learning. We should never stop trying to get better. When we start to just get comfortable where we are, that's when we start getting stagnant, and that's when bad things happen. So we've always got to go approach things with that open mind. So that's kind of the first thing I address, and kind of get a vibe for, like, are you open to learning new things, doing things a different way than you have before? Because, I'm a stubborn guy. So I know, like, when you feel like you know how to do something, it's harder to then push yourself. Whereas when you come at something and it's totally new to you, you're usually a little more open to suggestions. So I've got to remind myself all the time, like, I've got to stay open-minded. I've got to I've got more to learn too. So I think that's just the most important thing for anybody, regardless of kind of what level you're at, from when you're way up here or way down here and you're trying to move up to the next level. You've got to keep that open mind.
Yeah. So how much actual research and stuff do, like, you put in, I guess, like on a weekly, monthly basis to kind of like stay on top of the game, man? Like, how much time, like, how many times has the wife looked over you and said, Bryan, put down the fitness blog, like, let's go, man?
Literally, like, every day. Like, I can't even, like, she's always like, don't you get tired of watching that stuff or reading that stuff? I'm like, no, like, it's fascinating. So, I love it. So it doesn't feel like work to me. It's like, I love learning new things, but I mean, I'm always dissecting somebody's content. So it never stops.
Yeah. And how much of that is like science versus, I guess, like not science? Because sometimes, I read an article like fitness related, and it's like super scientific. You know what I mean? They're talking about like, blood cells and all this kind of stuff, right? And you're like, whoa, that's a lot. You know what I mean? The other guy's just like, Monday through Friday, 3 days a week.
I mean, I usually am always like, I evaluate the source. Where is this coming from? What do they look like? What are they doing in their everyday life? And that's a big determining factor for me as to whether I'm going to look at that information. I don't dive a lot into the super scientific stuff. I obviously read some of that kind of stuff, but there's there's a place for that, but for the everyday person, we will never need to know that stuff. And I feel like that's one thing that fitness has really failed a lot of people in, is they make it seem like you have to know all this detailed stuff and all this complicated stuff and dive into the cellular structure. And no, you really don't. And so that's really my whole goal with Bones to Bulk, is like, I want to break this down into the simplest terms possible, because I feel like in this day of information overload, we get thrown so much stuff, and it's not that we don't know what to do. We're just crammed, all this information tries to get crammed in our brains, and we're just like, I don't even know anymore. So
Yeah.
That's really my sole goal, is like, okay, let me break this down as simply as possible, because it's overcomplicated.
Yeah. I think you're doing a good job of that, man, based on what I've seen, because I totally agree. It's like, once you have so much stuff in your head, it's like, I don't even know how do I even take action on this? Like, when you're talking about hypertrophy and what's that?
I was just saying, I think too much information cripples us. Like, how many times have you been researching like a product to buy, and you think like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy this product, and you start reading the reviews, and it's like this endless rabbit hole. And then you're like, oh man, well, this has this many bad reviews. I don't know, maybe I better check out this item. And it's like this endless loop, because all of this information is coming at us. And so we just end up not buying it in the end.
Right. Yeah. And then, to your point earlier, you talked about like how scientific the fitness space can kind of be. And they start hitting you with these words, you know what I mean? Like hypertrophy and hypertrophy and this trophy and that trophy, and you know what I mean? And this phase and that phase and diabolic. And it's like, bro, what is going on right now? By the time you get to the end of the article, your brain's fried and you're like, I don't even know what I just read, but I read something. Like, we're going to get it eventually.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So how would you avoid that? Like, cause I guess avoid the analysis paralysis, right? Like, how do you gotta get people moving and really get them to take that first step and like, look, dude, all you gotta do is go out there and just move some stuff.
Yeah. Kind of back to that, what I said earlier, just those baby steps. I mean, just pick a couple things. Don't try to learn everything there is to know about fitness in a day, because you're just going to get overwhelmed and then you're never going to start. So, read one small thing or watch one small video and just apply that, and let that be enough for a week or two, and then go back and maybe watch one other thing, and just let it be that slow ease into it.
Okay. So do you then recommend like people do a lot of like constant learning? Like, do you recommend they do a lot of research and like continue to look into stuff and try to get as much? Because I feel like that's kind of like a balance, right? It's like, yeah, be simple, baby steps, but also like make sure you're doing some research. So it's like, how do you find that spot,
You do, and I feel like that's the hardest part, because when you do go online to, let's say, look up like, okay, what are some healthy foods, you're going to get 30 different answers from 30 different videos. So that part of it is the hard part. And there's unfortunately, I don't really have a way to be like, no, this is your go-to sign all the time, because it's hit or miss, and you'll have a video that has some great information and some terrible information. So there's really no way around that, unfortunately. To me, that as far as knowing what to eat or what to work out, think of it this way: getting in there and doing 20-30 minutes of something is better, even if it's not perfect, is better than doing nothing. Same with your food. Even if there's only a few things that are healthy to eat, just focus on those few things and don't worry about the rest right now. And continue to do some research, continue to learn, hire a coach, like whatever it is, to where then you can start to build up from there.
Yeah, and then you did mention too, like how you asked like, where is this source? Like, where is this information coming from? So how what does that process look like for you? Because I think that's something just in general, Bryan, that can help so many people, because they don't realize that when you search the internet, everything you're searching is in a vacuum. Like, if I search for the benefits of intermittent fasting, I'm only going to get answers that are benefits of intermittent fasting. Like, I'm going to get the opposite side,
Yeah. So I like to watch counter like videos. So like if there's something I am interested in, I'm like, I'm going to watch a video of the positive things of it. And I'm also going to watch one of the negative things of it. And usually
Yeah.
when you watch somebody who's for something and somebody's against something, you get a good grasp of it more so than just watching one or the other. So I would always suggest that, if there's something you're interested in, like maybe you're interested in intermittent fasting, watch a video that promotes it, but then also watch a video that talks bad about it, because yeah, it's going to be a lot of conflicting information, but you're going to find some similarities that kind of add up in a weird
Right.
way.
Yeah. So what's the criteria, for doing a research like that? You look at the person who wrote it, you look at like the company, the organization, or you like just kind of basing it off the information.
I would, I would say look at the person, and I don't just mean like look and see what they look like, because
Right,
I mean,
right.
there's all kinds of steroids and crap that a lot of people are on, so their body's not even in a natural state. But you can usually get a pretty good vibe of someone after watching a few videos of them, if they're just like spouting off about nothing, or if they're an a-hole, or if they're being genuine.
Yeah.
Um, and it's, I don't know. I feel like that's almost more of a character type you're looking for than
Gotcha.
information. Like, what's the character of this person? And I look at that first and foremost, because if the character is solid, their information is usually going to be solid. Not 100% of the time, but for the most part.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that, like not looking at the person, because a lot of times I think because we're people, we like to compare ourselves to others. So the first person we go to is Mr. Jack City, and I mean maybe he's just got good genetics or something. Maybe he's just been working out forever and ever, and it's like I don't know. He may not be able to help you specifically because you're different body type and stuff. And
Yeah.
the reason I bring that up, Brian, is because it reminds me of like I always see these memes about like fitness trainers, and it's usually like the dude who's throwing all the science at you, and he's like skinny dude. You know what I mean? And you're like, so you know all this stuff, but it doesn't look like he works out. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how do you bridge that gap with understanding like who these people are and stuff.
Yeah. I think another thing to look at too is if somebody's body who's teaching something looks perfect, like it looks like somebody cut them out and you can trace every muscle in their body, they're probably not natural. It's very hard to look that way and maintain it. Like when you see these bodybuilders who are on stage and are just like, showing off everything, they
Yeah.
look like that a couple weeks out of the year. And the rest of the year, you probably wouldn't even know they worked out. Like the
Wow.
intensity of what they put their bodies through to get to stage ready is not a sustainable thing. So when you see these guys or girls who just are completely shredded, have zero body fat on them, chances are they're taking supplements, steroids, all kinds of stuff to keep their bodies at that level, because it's not really maintainable in a natural state. So I like to look for the guys who, will do the funny
Yeah.
videos of them poofing their belly out and then sucking it in and having
Yeah.
abs. That's more realistic. Like nobody's walking around just completely shredded 365 days of the year, because your body, there's a certain level of body fat percentage you can't maintain year round. So
It's interesting you mentioned that because again, that's where everyone looks though, Brian. Everyone looks to what I mean, Mr. Olympia.
chiseled abs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's good, man.
I
I
mean,
think
you can read about some of these movie stars who got just completely shredded for roles, like Hugh Jackman for the Wolverine movie, and he talks about how absolutely miserable he was and how terrible he felt being at that body fat percentage. I mean,
yeah.
there's certain low levels of body fat percentage where it may look really cool, but our bodies aren't meant to function off of that. So it's we've sacrificed a lot all for looks, and that's another
Yeah,
thing. It's
yeah.
like it's not just about looks, it's about being healthy. Kind of your point, we want that functional fitness. We want to be healthy and be able to do things, not just be walking around with all the muscles.
Yeah, yeah. Because then, I mean, looks don't really like the look doesn't really do anything, right? It's like all about what you're actually doing. Like what do you need fitness for? Seems to be the big point. But that's
and
really cool, man.
Yeah, and your bodybuilders and Mr. Olympians, I mean, those guys, I mean, once they hit their late 30s, their bodies are completely broken from what they've put themselves through. And so it's like,
Yeah,
it's not to underscore what they accomplished, but at the same sense, it shows you like how devastating that is to the body. Like that, there's just certain things the body is not meant to go to. And I think in the name of earning a trophy or for looks, we put our bodies through way too much sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, look at Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone, right? And all these guys, they don't look so hot anymore. You know what I mean? They're looking pretty beat up. And it's like, dang, like what? Like I remember you when you were young and you looked pretty good, but something changed, man. And it's they're not doing the same
Yep.
stuff they're doing. Life doesn't look like that. Life doesn't look like this and like this.
It's absolutely right.
Because it's funny, that's actually cool. You mentioned about the natural stuff. I think so many people don't realize that. Because again, they look to Mr. Olympia and they don't realize like, okay, this guy has been doing straight up bodybuilding, maybe taking steroids, doing like protein or like testosterone boosters and stuff like that, like for 10, 15, 20 years. When you're looking at that guy and this guy's recommending his plan, like, dude, his plan wasn't his plan when he was where you were at right now.
Exactly.
You find that a lot? Like people do that with you a lot? They're like, do people show you a plan and they're like, hey man, I want to do this. Can you help me do this?
Honestly, not really. And I'm glad for that. And I don't know if maybe because I don't attract those kind of people, maybe they realize because usually people who come to me, they've been watching my content for a while. So I think they know that I'm not really about that life. So right. I don't really have many people come to me with that, but which is a good thing. I'm glad for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you mix up? Are you pretty much like traditional just bodybuilding, I guess, is the verbiage maybe? Or do you kind of mix in some functional stuff like CrossFit?
I don't do a lot of functional stuff as far as like CrossFit or HIIT workouts. I do throw some HIIT workouts in with some clients occasionally, but it's more just traditional strength training. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's something, I don't know, maybe because you don't do it, you may not like feel you can answer it or not, but I mean, I feel a lot of it's the same, but there's a lot of people that talk about how functional fitness and like HIIT workouts and stuff, they don't quite build the muscle the way strength training is. So like when someone's like, hey, I'm trying to gain muscle and gain weight, the number one thing they go to is just strength training, just heavy weight, strength training, right?
Yeah, for sure. And not to say that HIIT workouts and even CrossFit can have their place, but again, they're not really sustainable type of workouts in my mind. The body needs time to heal. It needs time to repair. And with strength training, you're not working out the same muscles every day. So, if I'm hitting chest and triceps on Monday, I'm not hitting those for several more days. So those muscles are getting a chance to heal and recuperate before they're being worked out again. Whereas with something like HIIT or CrossFit, I mean, you're constantly beating up those muscles day after day. And that's why there's so many injuries in those different things, because there's so much wear on the muscles without the adequate time to rest and recuperate.
Yeah, I mean, it really is like a full body workout almost every time.
Yeah, it is.
The way they kind of work it out, And then a lot of guys talk about doing accessory work and being aware. It's like it's really hard when the structure of the workout is like everything. Like, what are we getting today? Everything.
Yeah.
What are we doing every day? Like every day. But sometimes it's cool, especially like military guys, right? That's like what we need.
Right.
It's really what we need. You see a lot of guys who are super big up top, and it's like that only helps you in a couple scenarios. Everything else, it kind of hurts you. So yeah. I think to your point, way back here in the conversation is just what works for you. What are you doing it for? I think that seems to be like really good advice for a lot of people. It can help a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the cool things about having you on, Bryan, is I think there's so many young men who are just like, they know they need to just get like, and I wouldn't say get in the gym, but they need to start exercising, right? They're out of high school maybe, and they're kind of like letting themselves go, and they're like, man, I should get back, and I don't know where to begin, how to start. And I think a lot of what we talked about today can really help them out, like getting back to basics, doing things simple, focus on the workouts. So I think it was really good, man. And it was great talking to you. I know we're kind of winding down on time here, and I don't want to take too much of your time. I know where you're at, you still got maybe put the kids to bed and stuff. Where I'm at, I'm going back to sleep for probably go work out. But, I gotta go work out now. I talked to you, right? Like we gotta go get it in. So that's cool, man. It was great having you on. And just last question for you. Where can people like interact with you and find you and like follow and subscribe to your content and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so my website is BonestoBulk.com, and my handle is the same thing on every social media platform. It's @BonestoBulk. So you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, Facebook, you name it. So
okay, cool.
@BonestoBulk.
Nice. So you have any like deals or anything going on right now? Like how something to entice the people listening?
So I actually do. So for the rest of the month of May or March, sorry, which isn't too much longer, I'm actually doing $100 off my 8-week coaching package. So
Oh,
that
sweet.
basically is a custom workout plan, a custom meal plan, and then 8 weeks of me coaching you one-on-one. So
Awesome. That sounds great, man. So everyone heard it. Go check it out. Go check out BonestoBulk. Check out Bryan Parady. Get his discount while you can. Get the meal plan, all that good stuff, and get after it. So, with that, Bryan, it was great having you on, man. Appreciate it. Talk was good, and maybe we'll have to reconnect and do it again sometime.
yeah, sounds great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem, Bryan. You take care.
You too.